The snarl of a serial killer. Police officers who routinely arrest drunks and small-time offenders are about to hear the most chilling story of their lives.
This gentleman's been arrested on suspicion of assault charge.
The man in front of them has been captured on video flaunting a crossbow, and worse.
I'm authorising you to do this at the police station because there's an allegation that you've assaulted somebody, so you're having a brief interview about that matter. Do you understand that? Yeah, okay.
Where is a sex worker that he's enticed back to his flat? A macabre place, a shrine to his heroes.
On his walls, he had samurai swords, he had shelves of books on serial killers. It was like a den of dark arts.
And a place that he has lured the woman in this picture. Her life is in the hands of a man with a terrifying ambition.
He wanted to be celebrated for his accomplishments, but as a serial killer, so he sought infamy more than fame.
As he embarks on his ambition to become a man who murders, can anyone get inside the mind of a serial killer? Susan Rushworth is alone on a street at night, cold, underdressed, but sweating, at once frightened that a man will approach her, yet anxious in case one does not. She feels desperately lonely, angry. It's like that when she needs a hit of heroin. According to her brother, she'll do what it takes to get cash to pay for it.
I think she'll become more devious in the way she'd try and get money off people. She was so desperate for cash, she'd do anything for money, shoplifting or revert to prostitution to feed her habit.
Susan looks up, sees a familiar face. It is a man called Stephen Griffiths.
Susan might have had two kinds of relationships with him. Some sex workers went in for a cup of tea, pick up drugs. Others went there to sell sex. She might have been one who did both.
If she, like other sex workers, had been inside Griffith's den before, Susan will have endured an ugly ordeal.
He would show them videos featuring sadism towards women and read them passages from books about rape and mutilation and the murder of women.
That night, in June, she follows him, possibly suspicious, but unaware just how deeply disturbed he is.
Well, I'm misanthropic. I don't have much time for the human race.
Misanthropic, a general hatred of humans. What will the misanthrope do to Susan Rushworth? She is to look into the eyes of a man who has ambitions. He wants to become a respected academic. His speciality subject is a dark one.
Stephen Griffiths was actually a criminal psychologist and was doing a PhD, and the PhD was actually about the behavior of serial killers.
Homicide in an industrial city like Bradford, where he is now, was the title of his PhD. The content served as a killer's training tool.
What he did was off the scale.
All of those women who come into his company find him disorientating, dangerous.
They described him as incredibly controlling and unsettling. Once he'd given them money, he claimed the right to use them in any way he wanted. One woman said she felt less than human when she was with him. She was so relieved to get out of his flat.
So, just sometimes you killed someone to kill yourself, or killed parents. I don't know. That's like deep issues inside me.
Stephen Griffith's place on the list of infamous serial killers is guaranteed not simply because he killed 3 times, but because of his motive. He killed simply to become famous.
I think it's pretty clear that the first offence he committed, he'd already planned and decided where he wanted to go. He wanted to be infamous. He wanted to kill a number of people. And there's no doubt that if he hadn't have been caught, he'd have gone and killed, I'm sure, many, many more until such time as he was caught.
It is June in 2009 when Griffiths targets Susan Rushworth. She's vulnerable, not the same girl her family had known.
We had a really great life growing up. We played out most of the time. She was more like a tomboy. She wasn't like a sister, she was more like a brother.
A happy childhood is followed by a conventional start to her adult life. She marries, but it doesn't work out. A series of partners follow, one of whom introduces her to the world of drugs.
I think Susan started on smoking marijuana to start with, and that hit wasn't good enough. So then she started on heroin and crack cocaine.
Determined to get clean in the industrial city where she lives, she often returns to her family for encouragement to get better. One day, she disappears.
Susan went missing the day after Father's Day in 2009. It was a Monday. And she'd left my mother's house saying she was going to go get a methadone from the chemist in Bradford, and that she'd be meeting back up with my mum in an hour or so if she collected the methadone.
It wasn't the first time Susie had behaved this way. The family raise an alarm, but assume that Susan has returned to the streets to raise cash.
The police were every bit as worried as everybody else, but sex workers do come and go. It's a transient trade. They might just have moved on to practice in another town.
But as the days pass, there is no word.
Susan Rushworth went missing, so her family held a press conference. Nothing happened. Nothing was heard from her.
Had Susan come to any harm? There was no clear evidence of foul play at the stage, so Griffiths was not suspected of anything.
What has happened to Susan Rushworth? And what part has Stephen Griffiths played in the story? Stephen Griffiths lives in the heart of the very red light area of Bradford, West Yorkshire, where Susan Rushworth goes looking for business. As she does so, it is probable she meets Stephen, a regular user of sex workers, but it is highly unlikely she knows what's going on inside his damaged mind.
So Griffiths had a real fascination, not just with homicide, which he'd studied through his work with criminology, but actual serial killers. He was fascinated by the notoriety that went around them. He was fascinated by the fact that they'd be called certain names, that the press would be interested in them, that they would be elevated to almost a mythological status. Even though if they were feared, this wasn't the point. He was fascinated by the presence that they could hold over society as a whole.
This was the man who had spotted Susan as she stood alone, isolated, on the street, looking for a customer. She was in plain sight of another addict. Stephen Griffiths was not hooked on drugs. He was addicted to murder. What had made Stephen Griffiths into the man who sees Susan that night? His troubled ways begin when he's 17. Griffiths attacks a store manager with a knife, an assault for which he's sentenced to 3 years.
He was in fact diagnosed by a psychiatrist who actually raised the alarm bell, stating that this guy was seriously psychotic. And someone that perhaps wasn't immediately amenable to treatment. So, that history was there.
In later interviews, he reveals an obsession with murder and is described as a schizoid psychopath. He holds a girl at knife point, receives another prison sentence, this time of 2 years. By 2005, now out of prison, Griffiths stars himself as an academic. He is admitted for a PhD at Bradford University, researching his favourite subject: killers.
He was a deeply disturbed individual, obviously, but on the outside he seemed reasonably normal, bit of an oddball perhaps, but generally not beyond the pale.
Other students are in the dark about his past. He blends in.
So here was a man with deep psychological issues, and nobody could really tell.
Griffiths had partners, built relationships with fellow students, made friends like Delia Bartley Perry, who he'd met on the club scene.
When I first got to know Steve, he was really cheerful, and he was always making jokes and having a laugh.
Life as a student gave him lots of time to enjoy the local club scene. He posed like a matinee idol. It's kind of posed and preened for photographs.
But he wasn't right with other people. He didn't like people very much. And he made no bones about that, he didn't like people. And generally I don't think people liked him.
They find him distant, menacing. He suffers mood swings around this time, a result amongst other things of his mental condition, one he was running risks with.
So he is prescribed medication at the time, but the question is he taking it? Is he adhering to the treatment? And the suspicion from professionals around him was that probably not.
And that fact might explain why his personality seemed to completely change.
He seemed to get more serious and nastier and more angry.
Stephen took offence very easily. He bore grudges. He wasn't an easy person to get along with.
It was almost like as things were falling apart for him, those things were becoming more exaggerated. So his behaviour towards people was becoming more exaggerated.
His fellow students did not know who they had in their midst. The medication had masked his menacing nature. As the terms passed, they moved on with their lives. Griffiths did not. By 2008, the diagnosed psychotic is spending long hours alone, sharpening weapons, honing his skills, and becoming morbidly intrigued by every aspect of the life of one of the subjects of his research project.
Stephen Griffiths actually had a hero, and his hero was Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper. He had book after book about him. He was someone who he studied incessantly, that he was very fascinated with and perhaps even idolized.
In his flat, Griffiths is fighting demons. Around this time, he's reporting dark episodes.
He believes that bugs are crawling through his brain and that this is affecting his behavior. He can hear them, so he's got auditory hallucinations, so he's putting cotton wool in his ears. So right now we begin to see a genuine thickening of the psychosis that may have held him for a long time.
Using evidence gleaned from interviews with Griffiths and from studying his methods, police have pieced together events of June 29th, 2009. Susan Rushworth is on the streets, a familiar story for her brother.
Numerous occasions I'd see Susan out on the street, or the lane as they called it, selling herself, and I'd pass in a car and I'd stop occasionally and just ask her to stop doing it. And she's seen that she's in terrible danger. There must be another way, Susan. But she never could find a way to stop that.
Which makes her incredibly vulnerable. Griffiths leaves his flat. He spots Susan. Will he attack? Or will he casually approach her and invite her upstairs to his flat? Susan knows Griffiths, a fellow drug user. He may have had what she needs, or may pay for sex so she can use the cash to buy heroin. But it is a moment charged with portentous threat. Susan Rushworth's fate is no longer in her own hands. Stephen Griffiths has the defenceless Susan Rushworth at his mercy. In his flat, axes, hammers, sharpened swords. On the walls, posters of his serial killer heroes. Has he drugged Susan? Does she lie prone, powerless? Until now, he's only read about serial killers. In public, he is odd, but no threat. This is his big moment. His target meticulously selected, and he's alone with her.
I think when Griffiths was with a group of individuals, he probably presented very little danger because, of course, the chances of him getting caught are very, very high. He'll commit one offence, he'll get caught, and he'll go to prison. What he did is he chose his time. He chose the vulnerable. His victimology was very much about choosing those where he had power and control over them. It was only when he was on his own and when he was in a position where he could offend that the real Stephen Griffiths came out.
He makes his decision.
He couldn't have chosen a more vulnerable young woman. She's very addicted to drugs. She has no one around her to protect her. She's, for all intents and purposes, living rough, needing every bit of money that she can to sustain this habit that's killing her. But it's not her habit that kills her in the end, but rather this very, very sick, disturbed man.
Griffiths has never fully revealed the horror of Susan's ordeal, but security cameras installed in his housing block captured him carrying out refuse bags. What was in them?
A few days after she disappeared, Griffiths is captured on security cameras. He's shown carrying bags, and we now are pretty sure that her body was in there in pieces.
As far as what happened to Susan, we're not 100% sure. He just admitted killing Susan with a hammer. And Griffiths has never said how he's disposed of Susan's body. I don't think he ever will. I think it's still got some kind of power over us by not telling us what's happened to Susan.
43-year-old Susan Rushworth needed a friend that night that she ached to feed her heroin habit. Instead, fate had sent her into the hands of Stephen Griffiths, a man determined to kill without conscience.
Why did you feel the need to kill her?
I don't know. I don't know if I was... So, just... Sometimes you killed someone to kill yourself, or killed parents. I don't know.
Was it easy to spot those deep issues? Apparently not. Friends who knew Griffiths well just before he began his series of murders knew nothing. He was described by his confidant from university days as someone who could be a lovely man. Theirs was a simple friendship, uncomplicated.
We'd never fancied each other. There'd never been that sexual attraction there between us. And I think I was safe. I was a safe friend.
But even the safe friend was to see an aspect of his darker side.
I never felt threatened or unsafe with Steve until I actually fell out with him myself. And then of course, it was a different matter. I kind of started stepping back from him, so I wasn't seeing him as much. He contacted me and asked me to get something for him. And against my better judgment, I tried. And it didn't work out. And he took the oath about it. And I lost my temper and basically told him some home truths.
Was she in danger?
Delia had no idea what she was dealing with.
I basically told him that he was like behaving like a spoilt little boy who couldn't get what he wanted, and you know that people didn't want to know him, and that he wasn't being very nice in uncertain terms. So he didn't take that very well.
She had no idea that at this point Stephen was actually thinking very seriously about how he was going to carry out a very violent attack, fantasizing about it, planning it.
Steve started a hate campaign towards me. He phoned up on my landline a couple of times, threatening me. I got some nasty emails, to which I replied and basically laughed at kind of what he was saying to me and arguing back.
It's amazing to think that at any moment he could have gone over the edge, and she was right in the middle of that.
Griffiths moved on from his former friend. It had been a lucky escape. Delia was never to see him again. Within a short time of the parting of the ways between them, he had begun his series of murders. Around this time, Griffiths is still learning his trade from his research for university, deciding who were the soft targets, how he could kill them, and he's learning from his heroes, especially about who to choose as victims.
He had a desire to join the roll call of past killers. And who did he target? Sex workers, just like the heroes of his past.
He is very clear about his adoration, his admiration for serial killers, for violence. He's going on websites and chat rooms. He's developing his own websites around it. He's, being aggressive in relationships. It's if you were to have looked at it again in retrospect, if you were to look back, you could almost see the clock ticking to him, doing something irrational.
Would Shelley Armitage be victim number 2? Shelley had been a bouncy teenager, again from a family devoted to her. Her sister remembers when things began to go wrong.
Shelley sort of met up with the wrong crowd of people. She was only 16 years old, and just still so vulnerable. Only just left school. You know, I didn't realise what impact this was going to have on her life at the time, as of being such a young age.
Another heartbreaking story. This woman comes from, for all intents and purposes, what seemed like a very loving middle-class family, but gets embroiled in drugs.
She just basically started sort of staying in bed. You know, my mum and dad could smell sick in her bedroom, and we just knew, well, my mum and dad knew things just weren't right, really. She just sort of started changing as a person, from being such a lovely, bubbly, outgoing person to somebody that were just sort of wanting to stay in bed, and just changed.
The sisters were particularly close. Gemma dreamed of being like her gorgeous elder sibling who seemed to have everything going for her, until she became addicted to a poison, one which would make her one day vulnerable to Stephen Griffiths.
She got involved in heroin, which at the time back then, it wasn't something that people were aware of. It was sort of, it's when the drug hit, like Bradford really. People wasn't aware of the damage it was going to cause. No one was keyed up on it. Nobody knew what it was. And, you know, it led from probably just 3 times that she ever took it to her getting addicted to it, which caused her to then end up having to steal, you know, to fund her habit, really.
Ends up having to work as a sex worker to sustain her habit, becomes extremely vulnerable.
Late in April 2010, Gemma and Shelley spoke. The family, always ready to help.
We always spoke on the phone, always. In fact, I spoke to her on the 26th of April that day. She called me that afternoon.
After that conversation, Shelley has a choice to make. As ever, she's welcome back home with her parents or with her sister. Instead, she chooses the best way that she knows to feed her drugs habit, to earn money from selling her body. She heads for the area known to attract cab crawlers, the area that Stephen Griffiths has made his home. As she stands on a curb looking up and down the road for a possible customer, Shelley Armitage is getting anxious. But there are no signs of business. Someone is watching her. From his vantage point, Stephen Griffiths has spotted her. He descends the stairs, walks along the corridor of his block of flats. He's captured by security cameras, leaves the building.
This is who he's preying on. He's preying on the most vulnerable people he can find, and that's who he finds.
Griffiths approaches her. Within seconds, Shelley Armitage has become the latest woman to enter the lair of a serial killer. Again, he has never revealed precisely what happens next. To the outside world and the family who loved her, Shelley simply disappears.
The day Shelley disappeared, her boyfriend made the initial phone call to the police to sort of say that she'd not been home, and my dad was then informed by our liaison officers, went to see my mum and dad to sort of inform that she was reported missing. Back then, that phone call really, in all fairness and honesty, I didn't think would lead nowhere near to what happened. You know, I thought that she might have just gone off on one, be somewhere. I don't know, I thought she might have just been with some friends. I didn't read into it anyway. I didn't read into it at all. It worried me a little bit, but you know, this has happened before. We've had sort of experiences like this before. So I just thought she would turn up.
But she would not turn up. Griffiths has killed again. It is likely that within minutes of entering his flat, Shelley has become victim number 2 of Stephen Griffiths. But again, the nature of his victim's life means that no one knows.
It wasn't until maybe sort of a week into it, we then started to realise things were not right. She'd not claimed her benefits, which was out of the ordinary for her. She didn't collect her methadone, which is the medication she was on through the drug problem. So then we were sort of realising then that there was something sort of not right.
Gemma set off on a one-person crusade in search of her sister. She was to uncover a desperately sad turn of events. She spoke to other women who were working the Bradford sex trade. Had they seen her?
Drive around the streets day and night, asking the same question to all the girls up there, but none of them just could give me any answers. None of them, you know, they were all just as shocked and wanted to know where she was as much as me.
And they revealed a bitter, tragic irony. Someone had tried to rescue Shelley from the streets that night.
Each evening, a charity in Bradford patrol the streets of the red light district. They're looking for people down on their luck, people working in the sex trade who might need a hot meal, a warm drink, a bed for the night.
A short exchange almost certainly witnessed by Stephen Griffiths as he spied on his latest prey. In his own mind, he's on the way to emulating a hero, creating his own reputation.
Shelley Armitage's life ended the night she entered Griffiths' flat. We'll probably never know how he killed her. It could have been a crossbow. He might have used his swords, bludgeoned or strangled her to death. We just don't know.
Those who later investigated Griffiths' behaviour established other ugly truths. Griffiths is cutting up his victims' bodies, keeping some parts back, and then throwing the remains into the nearby River Aire.
I think what Stephen does here is for most people beyond comprehension. He doesn't just kill this young woman, but he cuts her up. He puts parts of her in bags to dispose of like garbage, and then he keeps some for himself to have as a kind of trophy.
It is April 2010 and Stephen Griffiths has now killed twice. Who would be next?
So is this the end of the story? I think very much in this case it's just the beginning. It's now about ensuring that he's a serial killer. He needs to do this again. He needs to do it in a similar way. He needs to build up this persona that he's planned for so long.
Suzanne Blameyre's life story is again of a woman from a respected, hard-working family.
Suzanne Blameyre was Bradford born and bred, trained to be a nurse, but then she fell foul of drugs. So by now 2 women had gone missing. Nobody had made a connection.
Thrown out of college, Suzanne's life entered a downward spiral. She would become another vulnerable sex worker doing what she could to get the cash to buy drugs. She fitted the tragic profile of victim that Stephen Griffiths would target. And one night, after seeing her chatting to another sex worker, Griffiths decides that Suzanne will be victim number 3. Again, unwittingly, Suzanne makes it easy for him. She works the streets adjacent to his flat. He approaches her. He's on home turf, dangerous ground.
It's an area where serial killers have preyed on sex workers before. It's the place where the infamous and appalling Yorkshire Ripper cruised the streets.
And of course, where Griffiths lived. He sees her, invites her to his flat.
Desperate for money, Susan Blameyre walks back into Griffiths' flat. She knows it's dangerous, but she decides to take the risk.
What she does not know is of Griffiths' armoury. He has an arsenal of weapons, including one which can kill at the squeeze of a trigger, and which he lawfully owns.
Lethal, but a perfectly legal weapon. He kept it in fantastic condition, oiling it and practicing with it in the woods outside the city.
After killing first Susan Rushworth, then Shelley Armitage, Griffiths' bloodlust was up. As they returned to Griffiths' flat, it is likely he tried to put Suzanne at her ease. Other sex workers he approached spoke of how he would at first seem calm, easygoing. Griffiths opens the door, and inside within a moment, Suzanne will have seen the weapons that he has adorning the walls.
On his walls he had samurai swords, he had books and shelves of books on serial killers. It was like a den of dark arts.
Given his violent criminal record, should someone somewhere have known of his dark fascination with lethal weapons? Not necessarily.
I can tell you I've been to many people's addresses who have guns, who has knives, who have all kinds of violent equipment there. And there's actually no evidence, and there's never been any, that these people go on and commit other offences. So the fact that he had a crossbow in his flat would not have indicated in any way that he was likely to have used it. Because of course, the majority of people who have these weapons, they don't go on and commit any horrendous offences with them. The small minority do. It's not a criticism you can necessarily apply to the police, the fact that he had these weapons, that nothing was done with them.
Suzanne Blamires, therefore, is part of a scene where Griffiths' behaviour remains unchecked, unsuspected, as she arrives in his flat. She may wish to leave, but either because he does not let her go, or because she still does not know the level of danger that she faces, Suzanne remains in his flat. She's done this before, had sex with oddly behaved men. She's always been fine, walked away with the money that she needs to buy drugs. She holds her nerve, takes a few more steps. Griffiths has done this before too. Sometimes he's had sex, other times he has subjected the woman to an ugly ordeal of intimidation.
So he degrades them, he treats them very badly, very violently. It's almost as if he's finding a way of dehumanizing, he's finding a way of relating to these people as their controller, as someone that has all the power over them, as someone that takes pleasure from their pain.
On some occasions, he uses that control to allow women to go free. But sometimes he kills. It is after midnight. Which course of action will Stephen Griffiths decide upon as he eyes up the tiny Suzanne Blamires? What is about to happen to Suzanne Blamires will become all too clear to investigators.
Griffiths had a secret past. Management at the housing project where Griffiths worked installed cameras because they'd heard of the prison sentence that he'd served.
The cameras captured Griffiths' comings and goings. They're about to record a horrifying ordeal. Stephen Griffiths is no stranger to drugs himself.
He was a heavy drug taker, a lot of prescription drugs, uppers, downers. So he'd have something to get himself up, then something to get himself to sleep, ecstasy, speed, and then later on ketamine as well.
His dependency on drugs puts him in a half-world of reality and of imagination, one he reveals online.
The other thing that we see during this time is a real obsession with violent imagery. In fact, he designs websites that are solely concerned with crossbows and with killings, with murder. Very graphic content, very violent content. This is something that he's surrounding himself with. Why is he surrounding himself with this content? Is it about playing it through in his mind before he does it? Does it give him a sense of comfort? Is it about a plan? Is it about establishing the identity? Is it about practicing before he does it?
The fate of Susan Blamires is now in the hands of a killer, one for whom savagery has become the norm, online and off. She realises that she's in danger and makes a run for it. He follows, armed with the crossbow, into the corridor where he knows there are cameras.
The security camera was pointed in his direction. He must have wondered, is it switched on? Will the tapes be checked?
I think what Stephen does here is for most people beyond comprehension. He doesn't just kill this young woman.
Suzanne Blamires was shot through the head. He actually made a triumphant gesture at the camera after he killed her.
And his method of killing, almost certainly he had loaded an arrow into his crossbow and fired at point-blank range into her head.
After he kills, he actually goes out of his way to be seen on camera. He's beginning at this point to want to imagine himself, how he's seen by other people. He's beginning already to imagine how his crimes will appear, how he will appear. So it's an establishment of an identity he's been actually seeking for a very long time.
More gruesome behaviour was to follow. Stephen Griffiths will soon reveal himself not as simply a killer, but as a cannibal. He will dismember the body of his latest victim, he will devour body parts. When checking the contents captured on security cameras, a guard sees the horrific events which have unfolded and reports to police. Griffiths is soon arrested.
This gentleman's been arrested on suspicion of an assault charge.
He mumbles a need for a drink. It's all very routine.
Stephen, if you just get back proper counter, just behind this white line for us. Just keep your hands down by your side. What's your surname, please? Griffiths.
And then the interrogation begins. Far from trying to hide the truth, Griffiths slowly begins to reveal slivers of it, careful to talk about only what he knows detectives will probably discover. For example, that he'd set fire to part of his flat.
What were you setting things on fire for?
Well, to destroy DNA, but like I say, in such a reckless, crazy manner. I can't believe, mind you, I don't know, I think, like I said, caretaker perhaps had other things on his mind, but otherwise I can't believe, with the smoke that must have been billowing out of the windows. Although I did keep them shut for a while as well, so that's why I got a lot of soot all over me, and eventually I got a breathing mask on.
Ever the gloating expert, Griffiths at times talks like a PhD research student.
So, how do you know that fire destroys DNA?
Well, to be perfectly honest, that was something I always kept meaning to check up on the internet, but it was just an assumption that, well, certainly I think the principle I operated on was, well, it certainly isn't going to enhance the quality of the evidence.
Police become anxious to uncover the whereabouts of the remains of the girls to help the families gain closure. Griffiths keeps back this information, a means of control.
And what sort of location have you put them in? If you can't tell us where, what sort of location have you put them?
I don't know. Where a robot, where a computer would put it. A rational, emotionless aberration would put it.
Why did you feel the need to kill her?
I don't know. I don't know if just sometimes you kill someone to kill yourself or kill parents. I don't know. It's like deep issues inside me.
So why did you feel the need to kill any of the girls? Van?
I don't know. Well, I'm misanthropic. I don't have much time for the human race.
Griffiths reveals just enough to establish to police that they're dealing with a multiple murderer. He's still hiding much, but he freely confesses to the killings.
He was very open in an awful lot of his killings, the way that he committed his offences, and he'd almost thrown in the towel. But I think at that point, he'd reached his notoriety. He'd got to the point where he knew he couldn't continue any further. And as a result of that, by giving up and offering the information, it enabled him to go down in history like some of his other people that he's followed. For example, Peter Sutcliffe.
He will have known that he was being recorded. Suspects are normally told. And Griffiths regarded himself as something of an expert in police procedure, and he would have been playing up to the cameras.
Many people will know about Peter Sutcliffe. How many people remember his victims? But of course that's what happens. You remember the offender, not the victims. And you're more likely to remember the offender if they come into custody and tell you the gravity and the gruesomeness and the horrific nature of their offending.
And this is the point where he begins to hold court. This is something that not only has he studied for years, but rehearsed in his mind. He actually plays around with the investigators, saying things like, you should have caught me sooner. It sure took you a long time. I mean, think about it. There was smoke coming out of my apartment when I was cooking these bodies. Why didn't you find me sooner?
Can't believe, mind you, I don't know, I think, like I said, caretaker perhaps had other things on his mind, but otherwise I can't believe, with the smoke that must have been billowing out of the windows. Although I did keep them shut for a while as well, so that's why I got a lot of soot all over me, and eventually I got a breathing mask on.
Seemingly relaxed and drinking tea, Griffiths reveals a string of revelations. Apparently he had a stove in his flat with which he would cook the victims.
He goes into meticulous detail, probably as a means of showing them that he can remember that he did engage with all these details, therefore he is in control and he is able to give this to them, but also because his agenda has always been not just to be a killer, but to be a notorious, infamous killer. And if he's going to be that, they need to know that somehow he was special and different and pushed the boundaries to the nth degree. So he tells them about these details. He tries to shock them.
Griffiths plans one last triumph, a final act to fulfill his ambition to become not simply a serial killer, but one who will find a place in the Hall of Infamy. His day in court offers him that chance. He gives himself a name, a mantle, like his hero, the Yorkshire Ripper.
So what's this final act that will allow him to be a part of criminal history forever and ever? Well, of course, it's to give himself a name, a title. And where does he decide to do this? In court. When he's asked for his name, he stands up and very calmly introduces himself as the Crossbow Cannibal.
When he said he was asked to give his name and he called himself the Crossbow Cannibal, was just disgusting, really. You know, it was heartbreaking. We'd already been through enough, and to have to listen to him say something like that was just horrible. I thought that I was actually hearing things at first, and it wasn't until I looked round at everybody else that I realised what he said was true. Everybody was just shocked, and it wasn't until then I sort of realised what a real sort of Jekyll and Hyde person we was dealing with here.
The only real issue related to Stephen Griffiths for the following court case to consider was his sanity. A psychiatric report had described Griffiths as psychotic many years earlier, but the court found that he knew precisely what he was doing. Griffiths consciously decided to kill, again and again. He was sane enough to cold-heartedly pursue an ambition.
Stephen Griffiths achieved his ambition to follow in the footsteps of the men he so admired, the murderers to whom he built a shrine.
In this age of celebrity, young people dream about being celebrated for their accomplishments, for singing, for dancing, for acting. He wanted to be celebrated for his accomplishments, but as a serial killer, so he sought infamy more than fame.
Stephen Griffiths became a rare inmate in Britain's prison system. The judge ordered 3 life sentences to be served concurrently with a whole life tariff. He will never be eligible for parole. The snip of a cable is where the living hell about to be unleashed on the lives of Lorraine and Bill Courier begins. The man breaking into their home is no burglar. He's a killer.
He's cut the power lines, he's cut the phone lines, so Bill and Lorraine are effectively completely at his mercy.
They heard nothing, suspected nothing.
He's completely uninterested in them, their lives, or the devastation that their families will feel if they're harmed. He is as cold-hearted as it gets.
He switches on a head torch to help guide him around the house. He's mapped out his every move. He will decide what happens next. He's in total command of his environment, a soldier on maneuvers. Israel Keyes may have killed as many as 11 people, perhaps more. When in custody, he toys with investigators, gives away as little as possible. He has prepared himself to resist interrogation.
There were ways that I could manipulate this situation in this case, all the related cases, to my benefit and on my timeline by withholding information and giving information out.
Israel Keyes presents a fearsome adversary as detectives try to get inside the mind of a serial killer. Israel Keyes meticulously researches targets. He secretly observes groups of people, eyeing up who might be a suitable victim. He will choose based on the best way of avoiding detection.
Serial killers usually target a type of person to kill. They have a profile of who their victims should be.
Not Israel. In his case, he just wants to kill. He's actually chasing the kills rather than the high of killing a specific type of person. There's no pattern. He's trying to disrupt that.
He chooses by geography. If you are where he decides to hire a car, for example, you're in terrible danger.
We know he killed in Alaska and Vermont, and probably 4 more times in Washington state, possibly even overseas. But he teased investigators rather than tell them anything.
Did you find any knives in New York or in the boat? Folding knives, about 6 inches long.
I may have killed in New York, I may have killed more times than I have said, but I don't want to tell you, not yet.
With 3 verified murders and as many as 8 more likely victims, Israel Keyes enjoys the police interview room, an opportunity to show who's boss, to be in control.
Well, like I've said all along, my cooperation on other crimes is dependent on what's going on with crimes that I'm already charged with. So. And I've said that all along.
He uses the interrogation room like a stage. He's very much in control. He's got the information, but he doesn't tell them. He hints. He doesn't say, I'm not going to say. He hints. He sends them off in the wrong direction. He comes back. He's very much wanting to eke this out, to be in control.
What made Israel Keyes the killer he became? He has no reason to murder any of his victims. They don't owe him money. They're not former lovers. They have not offended him in any way. He does not hate any of them. He is a multiple murderer who simply wants to slaughter and not get caught. He is as dangerous an animal on the planet. Bill Courier and his wife Lorraine chose to live in a classic Vermont town. Safe, pretty, dependable. Not for them, the big city. A life of domestic calm in Essex Junction suited them just fine.
Israel Keyes likes to kill off the beaten track. Now that's a crucial criteria for him. So Essex Junction was small and it had a low crime rate. So for those who lived there, defences are right down. Perfect killing conditions for Israel Keyes.
The way that he went about attacking Bill and Lorraine was kind of with military precision. You know, he's prepared. He cuts the phone lines, cuts the electrical lines, ensures that he's not making any noise, breaks into the house without them noticing. He's in control.
So the trap that Bill and Lorraine are in is not of their own making. They live in the wrong place at the wrong time. They live in a world of normality, about to be visited by a killer without a conscience. And nobody knows that he is out there.
48 hours earlier, Keyes flies from his home in Alaska into Chicago. He covertly takes in the scene, blends into the crowd at the airport. As the city goes about its business, Keyes is analysing his options. He rents a car and heads to a secret location deep in the Vermont countryside. There he retrieves his so-called kill kit. It is his calling card, the Keyes' signature method that distinguishes him from other serial killers.
He'd fly around the country and then find isolated areas to store his weapons and his provisions. And he'd cover them up. Now these kind of kill kits would be left in situ until he needed them. Of course, that also meant that on the days that he wanted to kill, he could minimise spending the time travelling with weapons or preparing.
Keyes, kill kit now safely at his fingertips, has a to-do list in his mind. He knows when police are on patrol, in downtown Chicago, in rural Vermont. He already knows the house he will break into.
He could not care less who he is about to attack. There's no reason to choose this couple. What interests him is the likelihood of success and of going undetected. Bill and Lorraine are literally tucking up in bed, and he knows that. His mode of operation includes a thorough understanding of what and who is around him.
Night falls, and possibly after switching off their favourite TV programme, Bill and Lorraine turn off their bedroom lights. They are completely oblivious to the man who's outside. He waits until they are likely to be asleep. He knows the weak spots in the house where he can easily gain entry, and he knows that the couple have no house alarm, no dog. He makes his move.
There's 3 people in this house, an innocent couple, and Israel, who's a killer.
How could anyone like Bill or Lorraine prepare for a moment like this? You cannot legislate for an Israel Keyes.
He reaches the foot of the stairs. There have been other times like this when he's decided to steal rather than to kill, to take any money that he finds, and then escape. What will he do next? Will Bill and Lorraine make it through the night? Their lives in the balance, Keyes can hear Bill breathing heavily in his sleep. He's excited. Such power, such control. A moment to savour for a man seemingly destined to destroy the lives of others. Israel Keyes' terrifying personality takes shape in Utah, where his Mormon parents decide to homeschool him. A move to the rural state of Washington follows.
So as a child, he didn't come into contact with a lot of people. He was homeschooled, he doesn't have a lot of friends, not a lot of social activities. But having said that, there's no indication that he stood out for that reason.
Unknown to anyone in authority, Keyes comes into contact with the Christian identity white supremacist movement. He attends services with his family, but that's as far as it goes.
Keyes was definitely coming into contact with extreme behaviour.
There's evidence that he came across some pretty extreme racist views after his move to Washington State.
But was he guilty of hate crimes? Did he have a group to target? There is nothing to show that he did. He could have turned out to be a normal citizen.
He is not on anyone's radar as a problem individual.
Eventually, the US military think well enough of him to allow him to enlist. He serves mainly at what was then called Fort Lewis, becomes a specialist, receives an Army Achievement Award.
While he's in the army, I think he does one tour in Egypt. I'm not sure that he actually is involved in any serious military action, but he comes back, honorable discharge, no one picks up on anything out of the norm.
But the ingredients were remorselessly coming together to produce a menacing personality.
So what does that make Israel Keyes by the year 2000? He's a trained killer. His background includes coming into contact with hate groups.
Keyes hones his military skills: planning, method, drill.
Keyes has a mind which enjoys research and preparation. He's a man of logistics. He runs his life by a timetable. Be up at 7, have your clothes ready, laid out, work at 8, book a train ticket in advance, be at the station 15 minutes early. Logistics.
It is now around the year 2000 that he begins his series of murders. In a later interview, the cameras are off when Keyes describes closing himself down to observers.
There is no one who knows me, or who has ever known me, who knows anything about me, really. They know they're going to tell you something that does not line up with anything I tell you, because I'm two different people, basically. And the only person who knows about what I'm telling you, the kind of things I'm telling you, is me.
How long have you been two different people?
Long time. 14 years.
Keyes becomes nomadic, living in cabins in Washington woods, on boats, wherever he can't easily be traced. It is now he begins to kill.
I hit somebody in the head, so.
One of the great mysteries of the Israel Keyes story is, who did he kill?
At this point, it now looks certain that he killed about 4 people.
He claims to have murdered 4 times, and the police believe him, but they don't actually know who or where the bodies are.
He admits to disposing bodies somewhere in the countryside or in lakes. He won't say who he's killed or exactly where their bodies might be. He also reveals that he became concerned that his victim count might attract attention, so he makes another decision. Henceforth, he will kill outside of whichever state he chooses to live.
He recognizes that if he carries on killing in Washington, eventually someone will become suspicious. What he does from then on is to fly out of the state, kill and return. And he will always pay cash to avoid leaving a digital trail.
Which makes Keyes even more difficult to trace. As Bill and Lorraine turned in on the night of June 8, 2011, they were just 2 of millions of Americans who knew nothing of the man who was behaving like a sleeper, primed, always ready to kill, as soon as he decides to. The police are not on his trail that night in Vermont. No extra patrols to protect the neighborhood. He has killed multiple times in 2011 as he walks up the stairs in the home of Bill and Lorraine Courier. It's a warm evening in Essex Junction. Bill and Lorraine are covered only with sheets as Keyes opens the door to their bedroom. He looks at them both, stops when he hears a creak from the floor, glances behind him. It is 3 a.m. He is relaxed. Israel can always relax when the pressure's on. He gets ready to pounce. Will Israel Keyes kill a middle-aged couple as they lie asleep in their bed? Will one of them wake and somehow frighten him away?
Their fate is sealed. Keyes has a plan. He will stick to it. But his crimes tend to always include an element other than murder.
Keyes needs money and he needs cash. If he's going to be flying here and there to kill people, he's got airfares, hire car bills, fuel charges.
Could Bill and Lorraine's home be a source of more cash? He scouts around.
Oddly enough, the value Keyes placed on stealing money during his episodes of murder might actually help keep Keyes from killing this couple.
Bill and Lorraine could provide another potential source of money. He could hold them to ransom.
He strikes.
He wakes them. We know he's armed, and he tells the couple to get out of bed.
His modus operandi was to use zip ties to bind his victims. He'd also gag them, and it looks like Bill and Lorraine got that treatment.
Keyes ordered the Vermont couple to go downstairs. He will have used force to show who was in control.
He was in charge, and if they wanted to stay alive, they had to do exactly as he said.
Keyes' mind is always clear. Control the victim, control the environment. Months earlier, he's discovered a barn. He will hide them, demand a ransom. He ties Bill to a stool, leaving Lorraine in the car. When he leaves the farm building, he sees her. She's wriggled out of the zip ties. She's running away.
This was not in the plan. He races after her. The 50-year-old woman is no match for the fit former soldier in his 30s.
He returns to the building with her. Bill has broken the stool that he'd been tied to and screams at Keyes.
He uses a shovel and he smashes it down on Bill's head. And then, as Lorraine watches, he shoots him dead.
Lorraine would be sexually assaulted and then strangled to death. Keyes' planning had not legislated for a couple who would not give in easily. Keyes bundles the bodies into refuse bags, drives hundreds of miles to upstate New York, and disposes of them. He's the only one who knows where. He will release that information when it suits him, and if it's certain that it's good for his image.
Right, my concern, the problem is nowadays, the more stuff my name is attached to, the more likely it is that somebody's going to try to do some kind of stupid frickin' TV special, or, you know how it is nowadays, like with all this true crime bull that people are obsessed with, and that's
Keyes became unhappy at how information was reaching the media. He continued to refuse to reveal where Bill and Lorraine's remains are buried.
The only reason the Courier case has even become an issue is because of me wanting to keep control of that situation before it became a situation.
Self-control has been a key part of Keyes' life for a long time.
He has an obsession with solitude, and to a large extent an obsession with total control over his environment, not just what he sees, but what he hears, what he feels. He needs that space.
Detectives knew that if they could uncover the locations Keyes had buried his so-called kill kits, they would then know that he'd killed in that area. But his knowledge gives him power. Power he uses.
Keyes had travelled the country depositing these so-called kill kits near to where he will find a victim to murder. Police need that evidence. He doesn't stonewall. He prefers to cause as much disruption as possible.
He tells them there's one at the foot of a mountain range upstate in New York, or by a lake. He'll give them just enough information to mean that tens of thousands of hours are spent tracking the kill kits down. And all the time, he's sitting in his cell, pulling the strings, creating the moments.
Keyes was involved in a standoff. The control of information extends his mastery over events. During his life, he'd had relationships, became a father. He naively believes that he can use the knowledge that he has to stop information reaching his daughter, who lives in an area called Near Bay.
That's my concern, is that, if something else were to get out, and especially in a different area or something, then, and now there's the whole Near Bay aspect of it now too. It's like, my kid's living in Near Bay now, and gossip is the town pastime, so.
Who else had Keyes killed? A kill kit is discovered in New Hampshire. Keyes then reveals that he spent some time in New Jersey. Investigators show Keyes a series of images of missing people. As he sees one picture, an old, degraded snap of a woman called Deborah Feldman, he pauses as if in recognition.
Deborah Feldman was a perfect fit for Keyes' own unique victim profile. Because first of all, she was in the right place. She was near the kill kit that he'd stashed away so carefully. Secondly, she was one of life's unfortunate drifters.
She's an addict, so very easy target. And at this point, what he's doing is he's state hopping. He's going from state to state, trying to rack up murders, in effect.
Deborah's life had descended so far that friends and family had deserted her. Her son had pleaded with her to get clean or get out of his life. She turned to prostitution to raise cash for her habit. There are a few more at-risk groups, than substance abuse-addled sex workers.
As with most things, Keyes never absolutely confirmed to detectives that he occasionally trawled for prostitutes, but it is strongly suspected that he did.
On the evening of April 8, 2009, Deborah Feldman was seen walking the streets of Hackensack, New Jersey. Israel Keyes is in town, probably in a car rental, probably looking for a victim, a drifter, someone he can control, and quickly.
Feldman was simply in no state to cope with a man like Israel Keyes. She is worthless in his eyes, simply a body to use for his own purposes.
Based on an understanding of his methods, a knowledge of Deborah Feldman, and on evidence that Keyes gave himself, detectives have pieced together what is likely to have happened next. Keyes knows the area. He entices the occasional sex worker into his vehicle. Deborah, desperate for money, asks Keyes what he wants her to do. In his car, his kill kit. He drives until a view from his mirror shows an empty road. It is not hard to guess what is going on inside the mind of a serial killer. As she sits, muddled by the drugs that she's already taken that day, Deborah Feldman tries to come to terms with what is happening.
Keyes never reveals the precise details of what he does with Deborah, but he does admit to driving hundreds of miles north, crossing state after state.
He will have subdued her.
We know he uses violence, immense relative strength against people like Deborah. He punches, he ties his victims' hands.
He sexually attacks the women he has chosen as victims. On this long journey, Deborah Feldman will have discovered that to her cost.
Having driven through the night, Keyes arrives at a place called Tupper Lake in New York State. Close by, plenty of open, remote spaces. He needs money.
He's involved in a robbery in a place called Tupper Lake, and interestingly, this is somewhere where there's also an unsolved murder.
His confirmed presence in Tupper Lake will become vital to investigators as they piece together Keyes' life.
The bank robbery places him many miles from where he now lived, with no family or work nearby.
As with other women he would target, Keyes' habit was to render them defenseless. Somewhere out in a wooded area of New York State, Deborah Feldman seems certain to have been left, barely if at all conscious, whilst Keyes committed the robbery. Would he return to kill her? Relying on previous scouting trips to the area, he would have chosen a place where the body of Deborah could not easily be found, and where he could carry out whatever he planned, certain that he will not be discovered.
You know, it's interesting. We use all these clinical terms. We talk about sociopathy and psychopathy, and we speak about lack of empathy when we're talking about serial killers.
We can safely assume that during her long ordeal, Deborah felt frantic fear and agonizing terror at what is happening to her.
This is, in reality, probably one of the most horrific things to be confronted with. Somebody that's sitting there across from you, over you, wanting you to perish, to die, wanting to bring your end about, and the amount of fear, and the amount of confusion, and just lack of any sense of reality that must be there for these people must be just horrific.
The detail of her ordeal tells us much about the evil of Israel Keyes.
An ordeal which ends in her death. The body of Deborah Feldman has never been discovered. Putting all of the evidence together suggests to detectives that she was sexually abused, then strangled. On seeing her snapshot, Keyes simply said, "I don't want to talk about that yet."
Keyes did eventually tell investigators that he drove Feldman to Tupper Lake. Now, we know he was there because of the evidence which emerged from the bank robbery. The body of Deborah Feldman is in that area somewhere.
Is it in Tupper Lake? Keyes reveals during his interviews a fascination for dumping the bodies of his victims in such places.
How long does a body last in a freshwater lake? I mean, because there's no critters that eat
It depends how. It depends how deep. I learned a lot.
Because it depends how deep the temperature of the water,
and if the body's contained in something.
And it's not critters. It can be like
bacteria.
Yeah. Organ.
You know about Lake Crescent in Washington.
How deep is it?
I think that lake is 500 to 700 feet deep. They've never been to the bottom of it. There's people who have gone off that lake, and they still haven't found their cars or anything.
And that's the lake?
That's one of the lakes.
What we're seeing is a man who's savouring his moment in the spotlight. You listen to him and he sounds composed. He sounds nerveless.
I don't know how deep it was. I know the general area, and I had a fish finder, but it didn't register how deep it was. I just know it was over.
Maxed out at 100 feet.
Oh, is that your fish finder goes to 100? I don't remember. I just know if you've been to the lake, you would see what I'm talking about. It drops down like a V. So.
Again, a tease that her body might be underwater. But that's all he has said about where she and others might be.
I think he's getting a lot of pleasure. He's holding court. He's the center of attention. You can see from his body language. So there's this sense of cat and mouse, of giving them a little bit and then taking it back. He's clearly enjoying it.
He revels in the human and economic cost of his strategy.
I almost feel guilty. Costing the taxpayers a lot of money to find them. But I just kept my mouth shut.
Key's pattern of behaviour is unique amongst serial killers. By now, 2009, he's living in Anchorage, Alaska, and choosing victims several time zones away. If anyone was looking into the disappearance of Deborah Feldman, Keyes would simply not be under suspicion. But the meticulous planner has taken risks. Holding up a bank, for example.
By the time Deborah Feldman is killed, Keyes is becoming brazen. Is he trying to be caught? Does he want the notoriety? Is there some sense of right and wrong displaying itself by behaving recklessly? Or is he just bloated on his own success, no longer concerned about getting caught? That, for me, is the much more likely scenario.
It is February 1st, 2012. Israel Keyes is back in Alaska. By his own account, he's killed at least 7 times. Who will be next? Samantha Kernik is working late in the Common Grounds coffee booth in Anchorage. Of course, Keyes knows this. He has scouted out the location, is aware of the comings and goings, and when the little shop is most likely to be empty. The snow is deep at this time of the year, helping create a sometimes eerie silence. And it helps Keyes that a mountain of snow has been moved adjacent to the highway, so no one can easily see the shack from the road. He sits outside in his truck. Around 8 o'clock, closing time, surveillance cameras inside the Common Grounds record events. Samantha turns to see Keyes at the counter, ordering a coffee. She gets the drink and can be seen chatting to her customer. The adjacent car park still has a number of vehicles. Keyes is looking around. Are there any witnesses to what's about to happen? The cup is nearly full. Does he want room for cream? She hands him the drink, tells him the price, looks away as he reaches to his pocket, and when she turns around, leans towards the counter to collect the money.
He's pointing a gun at her.
She reacts physically. She falls backwards. So you see her initially just sort of going about her job, making the coffee, and then she turns around and you see her lift her hands up and fall back. At this point, clearly she recognizes he's got a gun and he wants to harm her.
He orders her to switch off the lights, warns her he's tracking every move.
She's a girl caught in a moment of absolute terror.
Next, he actually forces her to turn around and sit down in the bottom of this cabin.
Minutes pass. It is likely that he is emotionless as he tells Samantha what will happen if she does not do precisely what he says. He tells her that he's killed before, that the only way she can stay alive is to obey his instructions. He's glancing around the car park as he talks. If someone appears, he can escape, but nobody does. Samantha is on her own. terrified.
Israel Keyes oozes menace. His calmness when holding Samantha Kernik at gunpoint is the same calm that he shows when he's being interviewed by the police. Now add to that level of composure a gun pointed right at you, and you will do exactly what you're told.
He knows this moment. He's seen it many times before. Samantha has to believe that her only hope is to submit to his will.
It was a ritual for Keyes. He enjoys the precision of his actions. He'd waited until closing time, ensured there was nobody else in the Common Grounds cafe. The area was deserted. Everything was going according to plan. He orders her to empty the cash till. She does so. Over the following moments, she can be seen responding to various instructions. She's told to put something in a refuse bin. She's ordered to sit on the floor of the cabin.
She just sits there, prone in the dark, while he tells her to put on her coat.
And at this point, she must be realizing that perhaps this isn't a robbery, this is something else.
He climbs through the serving hatch. He can't have seen the vehicle which is pulled up behind him as someone is collected.
It was his most brazen attack. Would the passer-by spot what was happening?
They didn't. Keyes clambers into the store. He seems not to have realized there were security cameras, an unusual mistake. He has Samantha at his feet.
He gagged her, starts physically manhandling her, and as she's on the floor, he binds her wrists with zip ties. He pulls her to her feet and forces her to the rear door.
He checks the cash register and then can be seen exiting out of the back.
He drags her to his truck and drives her back to his home. Now, this is a rare instance where Keyes is operating on his own doorstep, but he makes mistakes.
Keyes has never behaved this way. He has literally left tracks. Zip ties with his fingerprints on them have fallen to the floor, and he leaves behind her cell phone.
He left Samantha constrained in a shed adjacent to his house and had to return for her mobile phone and the zip ties he had dropped.
So at this point, he's driven her out, he's tied her up, and he has to leave and go back and get this mobile phone. So in order to drown out her screams, he puts on this really loud music, but again, very calmly, goes back, gets the phone, and returns.
Samantha, like Keyes' other victims, fits no particular profile that he has in mind. She's simply an available target. Though he had a daughter himself, Keyes behaves brutally towards his victim.
Samantha was just 18, and you'd think that her age would prompt in Keyes some level of humanity, but no. Instead, it just escalated the kind of level of his coldness towards his victim.
Anyone can imagine what must be going through this young woman's mind. So she knows that this person is intending to harm her. She knows he's got a gun. By this point, she will have picked up on his own cues, how he's dealing with her, how single-minded he is, how cold, how aggressive. And she's all alone. She's all alone with no way of communicating what's happening.
Had Keyes made so many mistakes that this time he would be discovered? Would he return to the Common Grounds coffee shack to discover police had been called? Would he finally pay the price of an error of judgment? After tethering Samantha, he left her, by now freezing, in a shed adjacent to his home. He then returns to the car park. There is no sign that the alarm has been raised. It is still too soon for Samantha's family to be worried that she'd not returned home. He collects the abandoned zip ties, gathers up Samantha's mobile telephone. That will come in useful. In the shed, Samantha Kernik can do nothing. Is she being kidnapped? Will she be raped? How bad is her situation? Keyes returns. He already knows the answer to those questions.
This sort of behaviour's become routine. It's just another day at the office for Keyes.
I think it's very unlikely that Israel is feeling any empathy at all. He's very single-minded here. He wants to get a kill, and he wants to get away with it.
He has not a moment's thought for the girl he has at his mercy. Will he kill her? Will he hold her for ransom? Will he sexually assault her? These are his thoughts, not, I wonder if she is frightened.
He described himself at one point as a monster, and that is a fair description.
Samantha hears him coming. She's considered the awful options available to her attacker. Which will he choose? Sometime on February 2nd, 2011, Israel Keyes told Samantha Kernik to relax. He was kidnapping her to get a ransom, and then she would be free. But he was lying. He raped her and then strangled Samantha Kernik to death. She may have been praying that he would spare her, but that was never in his mind. In typical Israel Keyes fashion, he planned the next few weeks to the last detail. He would leave Samantha's body in the shed and then disappear.
He'd already booked a vacation starting later that day.
The fact that he rapes and kills Samantha actually serves another purpose. Not only has he satisfied this need to kill and to hurt, but actually he's planned to go on a cruise. So he's able to rob her as well. So he's able to get some cash for this cruise that he's pre-planned.
But Keyes was to do more. He knew Samantha was dead. Nobody else did. As he enjoyed his cruise, Keyes was already planning his next move. He needed money.
He had always intended to demand a ransom for the release of Samantha. He knew enough to know her family was not wealthy, but he had a plan for that too.
A plan he had actually revealed to Samantha.
He told her a public appeal would be fine to raise the ransom money.
Whilst he was away, police issued appeals for information about Samantha. She had simply disappeared. Someone must know something. A reward was offered. Days passed, then weeks, until a text message is received by Samantha's family.
I think the level of cruelty is actually difficult to comprehend. So what he does is he kills Samantha, he goes on his cruise, he comes back, and he decides that he wants some money. So he props her body up to make her look alive.
He wanted $30,000 for her safe return, and he sent a photo of Samantha apparently holding a local paper from just a few days earlier.
He puts a newspaper in her hand of the current date, takes a picture with her mobile phone, and then sends it to her parents asking for $30,000. Her parents don't have this money, but they issue an appeal to the public. They get the money and they send it to him, and all this time their daughter's been dead for weeks.
It was deposited in Samantha's account, which Keyes now had access to. All the time, Keyes alone knows that Samantha is dead. As more days pass, more weeks, Samantha's family, friends, and the city of Anchorage lost hope that she'd been spared by whoever had kidnapped her.
But at least Keyes started making mistakes.
When the parents of Samantha electronically transfer the money, the police are then able to see what activity is going on in the account. So every time he withdraws money, depending on where he is in which state, they know where he is. He ends up in Texas, where he's driving.
He exceeded by just 3 miles an hour the speed limit in Lufkin, Texas. A police patrol car pulled him in.
And inside the car, rolls of cash, a face mask, Samantha's stolen credit card, even her mobile phone. The Israel Keyes series of murders was over.
But in many ways, the mystery had just begun. There was little that Keyes could do to back up any claim that he might be innocent. As he sat in the interview room back in Alaska, it became clear that police had the evidence to secure a conviction. Shortly into the interrogation sessions, he began to reveal the truth about a 14-year killing spree.
The turning point in his story was a moment when police told him they would be going through his computers.
And so began a series of at times oddly jovial verbal bouts as Keyes danced around the facts of his murderous life and interrogators tried to win his confidence.
Did you have a place up there that you go to buy guns?
No, not in New York. I never bought guns officially. I was always under the table.
Keyes would show his frustration that details of the case were leaking out to the media. He wanted to decide how and when that should happen. And he already knew exactly how he wanted to die.
The death penalty is what I want.
Wanting the death penalty became a crucial part of the interviews. He needed to ensure that the state he'd stand trial in had capital punishment. Alaska and Vermont did not. Washington did.
He began manoeuvring the system to his own needs. He really did push the detectives for information about what crimes they knew of. He exchanged information for a purpose.
And he began to hint that he might not tell them anything at all.
If I'm dead, then the investigation from the federal government's point of view is pretty much closed.
40 hours of toing and froing was to follow before Keyes had the last word on matters. 3 months before his scheduled trial, Keyes managed to smuggle a sharp object into his cell.
Then he did what he threatened he would all along. Israel Keyes killed himself.
He cut his wrists whilst also hanging himself. His suicide means that it's unlikely we will ever know just how many people Israel Keyes had killed. He didn't put a figure on the number of victims.
It was the final act of a man determined that he and he alone should be the master of his destiny. His final triumph, if you like. You can't control me, even when you have me.
Joanne Denahi is a woman who gets results from flirting. She even tries it on with police officers on those occasions that she's arrested.
Amazing.
Looks good.
Thanks, Matt. That makes it so good. Real sexy.
Which puts a man called Lukasz Slabaziewski way out of his comfort zone. Back home in Poland, the text he's just received may have triggered an alarm. Too good to be true, perhaps. But in England, his guard is down. It's from Joanne Denahi, enticing him to her place for no-strings-attached sex.
He was completely fooled, which isn't a surprise because by this stage in her life, she's got men at her beck and call. It's something that she uses very much to play on her sexuality to attract men.
Lukasz is attracted to Denahi. He has no idea who he's dealing with.
Women tend not to become serial killers. Lukasz had happened upon a woman who longed to be one.
Will she kill him? She might. Hers is an exclusive club.
She's one of only 3 women that are convicted in the UK of serial murder.
What is to be her decision the day that she sends him the come-to-bed message? She considers his fate, strokes her knife. She's excited, a woman who literally has a lust for blood. Lukasz is about to discover what goes on inside the mind of a serial killer. Joanne Denahi knew the big skies and rich fields of England's flatlands. Knowledge of the fen's remote ditches was useful too. Drop a body in one, and it could lie undetected for a long time. She's been collecting intelligence like this for over a decade. It was here her grisly story began to unfold. Too late, to save the lives of 3 men.
Each of the men she attacked had inadvertently triggered in her a desire to kill.
Joanne Denahi takes offence easily, and if she does, no man is safe.
They'd said something she didn't like or looked at her in a way she thought disrespectful, so she would kill them.
At first, she chose to attack men who displeased her, but soon dropped the pretense. She selects an arbitrary criteria for knifing any man she sees. Dog walking.
She approached 2 men in the street who were walking their dog and in broad daylight attacked them with a large knife.
She stabbed 5 men, each a frenzied attack, before finally she was caught and captured on camera, happily chatting to arresting officers.
Attempted and murder. Attempted murder and murder. It was. A big fat black dog.
You see the level of bravado and narcissism. She's standing in front of the clerk for murder, for taking people's lives, an attempted murder. And she gloats and says, well, yeah, at least I'm not fat or ugly. It's this, last attempt to kind of seem that I'm the one that's in control. I know what I'm doing here and no one's going to rock my confidence.
Joanne Denahi occupies a rare place in the history of serial killers. A young mother from a loving family. She got a kick out of killing. Someone has to be a serial killer's first. Would it be Lucas Slabaziewski? He's in Peterborough, England in March 2013. Soon, he plans to return to his native Poland.
He is getting casual work at this point. His sister lives in London, building a career, and he's come over to see what he can find. His is not a settled world. He has no permanent home. At 31, he is yet to start his own family. He is a happy man. His sister describes him as the joker of the family. At this point in his life, he has no responsibilities, so he is drifting, really.
It is now he comes across Denahi. Both are in the area finding work and then renting rooms where they can. She and Lucas have flirted a little. He finds it flattering. She returns his wisecracks, encourages him.
She was setting him up in a particular way. She was sending him flirtatious texts. She was asking him to come to her home.
It certainly looks like she was grooming Lucas, tempting him, trying to win his confidence.
He believed there was potential for a relationship. She, on the other hand, was just luring him into a trap.
She springs the trap on a grey March day. Her latest message gets to the point. Lucas is in no doubt what's on offer. He sets off to the address that Joanna has given him. Lucas has a transient lifestyle, not working full-time, no family strings, miles from home. He has time on his hands. A random series of text messages from someone he's just met may appear odd to some, but to him, they appear perfectly normal. Maybe this English girl just fancies him. On receiving her text, Lucas sends a message to a friend. Life, he says, is beautiful. In fact, he's in a very dangerous place.
Denahi can sense his vulnerability at this point. He has nothing else to do but come and see her. He will be alone. She will be ready.
You've got this situation where on the one hand you have someone wondering about whether or not they're going to have sex, and you have someone else wondering about whether or not they're going to kill the other person.
Denahi was making up her mind. How far will she go with her violent fantasies?
She later told friends that she wanted to know just how cold she was. She admits knowing that she cannot feel for other people.
Lucas reads the text message one last time. Today is going to be fun. What had made Joanne Denahi the woman she had become by 2013? An aimless 31-year-old mother of 2 drifting from bedsit to bedsit. As a child, she was a model daughter, not displaying any hint of psychopathic tendencies.
For many serial killers, you begin to see very early on that they're not engaging with their surroundings, that there's difficulties, that they're harming perhaps animals, or they're taking comfort in the hurt of other people. This wasn't the case for her.
If you look at her childhood, it would appear to be trauma-free and relatively normal.
She, as evidenced by reports from her sister and her parents, was a very happy, engaged young girl, at least till the age of 13.
There were simply no signs of what was to come. At 12, she was enthusiastic at sports and good in class.
In fact, she was a really good student, so good that her parents were paying for extra tuition to ensure that she was able to reach her goal of becoming a lawyer.
So we have a normal, achieving, caring, functioning 12-year-old, and then it all changes.
And then at 15, there is a dramatic change in her character.
She skips school, hangs out with a group of older boys.
She's abusing drugs, she's abusing alcohol, she's sexually active, and by the time she's 16, she's actually moved out of the house and is living with an older man.
Who could have known she would become such a troubled adolescent?
There's clear indications that Joanne Denahi had a drink and drug problem, but there's also clear indications that she had other kinds of mental illness and was known to the local psychiatric service from a relatively young age. So it's quite clear that there was a combination of drink and drugs and to a degree mental illness that was influencing her behaviour.
For money, Joanne gets casual work on farms, but she develops an expensive dependency on alcohol. Her boyfriend knows that some days she asks to be paid in booze, and he sees what it does to her.
Alcohol makes Joanna extremely violent, so we know that even in this first relationship, whenever she's under the influence of drugs or alcohol, she becomes very aggressive. She'll beat him up, she'll become very violent towards him.
By now aged 22, the transformation from Denahi the conforming child to Denahi the threatening, dysfunctional adult is all but complete.
Well, all the evidence would suggest that Joanne Denahi is deceitful, irresponsible, impulsive, lacking in remorse and empathy, and completely focused on her own needs. They are all the traits of psychopathy.
Some of her friends recall strange sexual habits. She would take out her own knife, hold it to her throat, and matters escalated.
She was a self-harmer. She would cut her stomach and arms whilst having sex.
People around her are identifying her behavior as really problematic. So her partner is frightened of her, and they have 2 children now, and he takes the children with him and gets full custody and goes as far away as he can.
Years of erratic sadomasochistic behaviour follow as Denahi moves from low-rent bedsit to down-at-heel room, picking up odd jobs, turning to prostitution, and eventually being arrested for violent behaviour. She will be diagnosed with a psychotic condition.
She in fact has a sexual paraphilia where she enjoys sadomasochism. That's not only inflicting pain on herself, but actually inflicting pain on others and getting real pleasure from that.
This was the woman who Lucas Slabaziewski considered as simply the frisky girl who sent come-to-my-bed text messages, the wild English woman who offers sex acts should he come over. He's outside her door when he sends a reply.
Anyone would deduce, looking at the text messages sent, that she was luring him into a trap, and that that clearly suggests that she had, to a degree, premeditated what she intended to do.
Premeditated. A key turning point in her story. A cold, rational set of decisions to make something happen, to lure a man to her side. But what else has she planned? So far, she's never killed.
From what we know, the only person she has turned her knife on was herself, as she self-harmed. She always has it with her, even when having sex. And some of her partners do say she was very scary to be with.
It is cold as she opens the door to Lukasz. She beckons him in. He looks at her, perhaps spotting for the first time the star tattoo she has beneath her right eye. Behind her back, her favourite knife. Their eyes meet. Life for Lucas is so exciting in England. Will Joanne Denahi use the knife that she has sharpened endlessly, hour after hour, on an unsuspecting man? He thinks he's struck lucky with the woman who he has known for just a few days. Would he have considered himself lucky if he knew of her past?
Almost exactly a year before this moment, a psychiatrist had diagnosed Denahi as having an antisocial personality disorder and an obsessive-compulsive disorder.
Denahi weighs up what to do. Have sex or kill the man? Or both?
Lukasz is in a world of danger, and there are no warning signals.
Joanne Denahi is a woman that thrives on confrontation, and the natural follow-on for that is that she actually enjoyed the physical element of the violence that she inflicted on the men and the control she was able to inflict on these men.
She was immensely powerful. She had actually worked as an enforcer for loan sharks. Joanna Denahi is strong.
Lucas sees the knife. Too late. She strikes.
She plunged the knife into his chest.
Denahi's habit when knifing her victim was to smile. The last thing Lucas Slabazewski will have seen would have been the grinning face and demented eyes of his killer. He died almost immediately. 31-year-old Lucas had come to England to learn the language, earn money to send home to his mother, and have some fun. His guard down, he had become the perfect victim for Joanne Denahi. Her honey trap had worked. She knew it would. She had a way with men.
She had no problem attracting men. From her school days, they would bend to her will. Older boys in the same school, slightly older men she would come across, they would all do her bidding.
It was time to call on one of the Denahi men for help. She needs a little muscle to get rid of the body of Lucas Slabazewski. The first of her go-to male followers that she considers is Gary Stretch. When Denahi had met him, Stretch was in the same drifter's world as hers. He's a giant, standing over 7 feet 3 inches tall. At one point in his life, things had appeared normal. He had married, been a genuinely devoted father. He had issues. His real name was Gary Richards, and he suffered from gigantism. He grew beyond 7 feet. He adopted the name Stretch as a strategy to deflect constant teasing. He became a petty thief and eventually split from his wife. But Stretch was no criminal mastermind. He'd once burgled an office only to steal a single chocolate, also leaving behind his fingerprints, leading to his arrest.
There is something absurd about Gary Stretch. She quickly spots a potential accomplice, a willing volunteer in her life.
The pair make an unlikely couple. Stretch almost certainly feels wanted, needed. He's very self-conscious.
There's evidence to suggest that he was actually really insecure, not only about his height, but also his looks and his intelligence.
His almost pathetic devotion can be seen in letters that he wrote to her whilst both were behind bars. He tells her she'll never meet another man like him, that she can always count on him. Stretch becomes a classic Denahi poodle, answering to her commands.
In fact, his own lawyer described him as a nodding dog. He said by the end of his relationship with Joanna, whatever she said, he did without question.
I think Stretch was working as a minder in many respects for Denahi. She trusted him, she helped him, and there was some sort of mutual agreement between them.
You'd think that, because of his size, he'd be kind of very domineering and dominating, but in fact, not at all. He's actually very malleable. It may be that he's actually overcompensating for his size.
In his later letters, Stretch signs himself as Denahi's undertaker. He has every reason to.
So once she's killed Lucas, she gets Stretch to help put him in a bin, and she's proud of this.
She used those men as her removal men, for want of a better expression, to help her dispose of the bodies, which quite clearly was her way of manipulating them and involving them in a crime in the hope that they would, by being complicit, not speak.
Don't forget that, a big part of the high of killing is to let people know that you've done that. There's an exhibitionist element, certainly in Joanna's case. And so she calls over a teenage friend, lifts the top of the bin up and says, "Hey, look what I've done."
She was focused on the notoriety that her actions would give her in time. So there's that element of wanting to be seen as bad and scary and really dangerous, which is part of her character.
The body went undiscovered. Lukasz would regularly go days without contacting his sister in London or his parents in Poland. Nobody he loved knew he was dead. For now, he remained discarded in a large domestic refuse bin. A teenage friend and Gary Stretch bent to Denahi's will, saying nothing.
She was a woman that was very focused on control, very focused on control of men in her life, and she used her sexuality to help her control those men.
The next of the men under her spell is Kevin Lee. On release from prison for an earlier offence, Denahi is homeless. She tours Peterborough looking for a room, and she comes across a lettings agency run by Kevin Lee. He unwittingly enables the next killing chapter of her life story. But would he also become a Denahi target? She asks him for help finding a place to stay.
Lee's business partner did not like the look of her and recommended that they decline the business to let her find her own place to live.
Denahi owned up to having just got out of jail and said that she needed somewhere to start a new life. Played the sympathy card.
Lee was impressed by Denahi's honesty. He fell under her spell, if you like.
The couple began an affair. Later, Denahi would say that she found Lee's advances unwelcome, but in reality, she encouraged them.
The only reason Joanne Denahi was involved in seeing Kevin Lee was that he enabled her to have access to properties and basically supplied her with accommodation.
So she uses her tried and tested techniques for enticing men to do this. She uses her sexuality. She meets an estate agent who she begins to sleep with.
So it was a mutually advantageous relationship. She supplied him with sex, he supplied her with accommodation.
Kevin Lee quickly found his new lover unsettling, scary.
He told a friend that she was a cross between a character in the film Kill Bill and the Terminator. Violent, aggressive, armed. She was a frightening person to be around.
But the relationship continues. She gets a job helping Kevin Lee in the letting business. Her presence was so intimidating that she was sent to make bad payers part with their rent. Throughout this time, she moves from one bedsit to another. After killing Lukasz, she moves to another house where a man called Leslie Layton lives. He too will become a Denahi man in time. For now, she's focused on still another man she's come across, John Chapman. Chapman knows about violent death. As a young man, he had served as a sailor, seeing active duty in the Falkland Islands for the Royal Navy. At 56, he was no longer the fit, fighting man that he had been. His dependency on alcohol rendered him very vulnerable.
He was a man that was living in the same home as her.
The pair shared a bathroom in the house. One day, the door slightly ajar, Denahi thought she saw, as she bathed, Chapman glance in her direction. He may have done, he may not have done. But Denahi had chosen her next victim. On the evening of Good Friday, March 29th in 2013, Chapman took drugs. He also drank high-strength alcohol. He was soon in no state to defend himself.
Apparently he was drunk, unconscious, and that really suggests that she just completely disliked the man and that she felt an overwhelming need to kill, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Chapman was like a lamb to the slaughter, still conscious, but only just.
Denahi waited until her housemate was drowsy, lying prone on a sofa in the grubby lounge that the two shared. Was he about to become victim number 2 of a serial killer? John Chapman lies on a sofa, barely, if at all, awake. Denahi attacks.
She used the same knife as the one she had killed Lukash with. She stabs Chapman. He stood no chance. Somewhere in his shocked, addled mind, he probably knew enough to realize that he was dying.
Within seconds, Joanne Denahi has taken the life of victim number 2. She stabs Chapman in the neck, then 5 times in the chest. Hers is a wild, merciless, bloodthirsty attack.
Someone that uses a knife, it's very savage. There's normally a lot of blood, and someone that repeatedly stabs someone, that would be a frenzied attack, consistent with a huge amount of violence and trauma.
Again, she needs help from her growing band of male assistants.
She has such little value for life. One of the comments made by the police is that when she kills again, she calls up Gary Stretch, and her words are something to the effect of, "Oops, I did it again." And that's how she lets him know that she's got another kill that she needs help with cleaning up.
Denahi and Stretch call on the help of Denahi's other housemate, Leslie Layton, another social misfit living in a world of drugs and drink, another man in Denahi's thrall. When he saw the body, Leslie Layton displayed his own contempt for human life.
Layton got his phone and took a photograph of the body, a trophy to show his friends, perhaps, or a big moment to look back on when he was bored. Layton had become yet another man in Denahi's thrall, but he was already a damaged man.
As with the murder of Lukash, Denahi had chosen a victim that few would mourn or miss. Chapman also lived in the world of misfits, no job, no close family, few real friends, drink his companion. Indeed, when news eventually filtered out of his death, those that knew him sprinkled high-strength cider near the door of his home as a tribute. But in the immediate hours after his death, nobody was looking for his killer. The three moved both bodies into the countryside east of Peterborough. They were discarded in one of the open ditches which crisscrossed the English fenlands, the ones Denahi knew so well. What was going on inside the mind of the serial killer, Joanne Denahi? She's excited. She finds the whole episode invigorating.
She likes the smell, the essence of blood. This is something that she boasts about when she's interviewed, but more than that, she actually never washes her knife. She likes the idea of having the blood on it, of smelling it, of reliving the situation. So for her, it literally is a story of bloodlust.
And a lust which is not sated.
She wants to kill again.
And to kill again immediately. She returns to the house where she has killed Lukash and sends a trail of text messages to entice her next victim. Denahi has an audience to her grisly show. The men that she has surrounded herself with are now aware that she's a double killer. Far from worrying her, far from suspecting they may turn her in, she feels she's impressing them.
There is something else going on here that we see with multiple murderers throughout time, the concept of folie à deux. Denahi's cohorts, the men in her life, become an audience. Whether they know it or not, they become people she wants to impress. She is killed, they show her respect. She must kill again to keep that respect.
Those who later analysed Denahi's behaviour also tell of another motivation for murder: sexual. She's getting turned on.
When she would masturbate, she would cut herself. So this association between violence and sex, between knives and pain and cutting and sex, is something very, very upmost in her mind, something that she gets a high off of. So we know that she gets a sexual high off of killing.
Denahi only targets men as both victims and friends. Given the bisexuality that she freely talks of, is this further evidence of a key motivating factor for her deeds?
There are many, too many, examples of men who kill women because they hate them, a hatred caused by repressed sexuality. There are very few cases where women become serial killers for the same reason. But that may be what has happened in the case of Joanna Denahi.
It is March 30th, 2013, and Joanne Denahi has now killed twice. Who would be next? Kevin Lee, her boss and lover, is another man bent to the will of Joanne Denahi. Unlike Lukasz Slabaziewski, who was separated from his family and homeland, or John Chapman, who drifted into a netherworld of alcohol abuse, Lee has a loving family nearby. His letting business is at the low rent end of the market. Occasionally there can be trouble, bad payers, nuisance behaviour. That, it seems, is why he likes Joanne Denahi. She would sort out the tenants in arrears. That, and the sex that she offers him.
And in return, she got a place to live and another man at her beck and call.
If control is what she seeks, that's certainly something that she has. At this point in her life, she's got absolute control over 3 men. She clicks her fingers and they come running.
With Lee, there was something else motivating him.
As well as enjoying the easy, no-strings, often exotic sex he had with Denahi, he felt genuine compassion for her.
Would he pay the price of an error of judgment? After killing John Chapman, Denahi went shopping for booze. When she returns, Denahi sends another text message to Kevin Lee. Will he meet her at her old bedsit? Lee reads the message and tells a colleague that he's going out. What had the text said? He tells his friends. Joanna says she's going to dress me up as a woman and rape me. She's done this before. It's one of a series of highly sexualized messages that he receives which display the unusual, often extreme sexual demands that Denahi would make and which intrigue Kevin Lee. Each time this has happened in the past, they would have sex. But each time, she would consider killing him. He leaves his office. It is 2 o'clock. How could Kevin Lee be so gullible? If he was not alone.
Over and over again, she'll put it out there and say to men, come over, I want to have sex with you.
It works every time. She needs Gary Stretch. She calls him and he comes running. She wants Leslie Layton to run an errand. He's just a message away.
And she does this with the letting agent. He comes over, normally they have sex, normally it goes fine, he leaves, but on this one occasion, she takes it that step further.
Now she has Kevin Lee also doing her bidding.
She is alone in the house where just 4 days earlier Denahi had killed Lukasz Slabaziewski. Always with her, a knife, constantly sharp. She makes sure of that. Kevin Lee is en route. She may have sex with him. She may kill him. Which will it be? Kevin Lee drives to the house on this estate in Peterborough. It is broad daylight. Behind the net curtains, locked doors, closed windows, nobody in the neighbourhood has any idea that a man has already been murdered in one of the houses and that another life, that of Kevin Lee, hangs in the balance. Denahi opens the door, beckons her lover inside, then stabs him 5 times. Unlike her other victims, the first cuts were not enough to completely subdue Kevin Lee. He fights back, but nothing could save him from Denahi's savagery.
By this point in her story, Joanna's out of control. She's actually wanting to kill. She's on a killing high.
Outside, life goes on. Normal people doing normal things. The community oblivious, as applying the same savagery as she had done twice before, Denahi repeatedly stabs Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee had known Joanne Denahi for just a few months. In that time, she had become his lover, killed 2 men, and now she has killed him.
The men that Joanne Denahi killed were men that were in her life, and there were men that were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. When you look at the first man that she killed, he was really just a potential suitor. You look at the second man that she killed, he was a man living in the house, the same house where she was lodging. And if you look at the third man that she killed, he was her lover. So they were just men that were part of her life that were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Chillingly, amongst her motives, pleasure.
When you overlay the fact that she had a sexual interest in sadomasochistic sex, one is drawn to a conclusion that she may have got some sexual pleasure or arousal from the murder of these men.
As the life of her victim ebbed away, Denahi was already planning her next step. She had 2 bodies to get rid of on 2 houses on a densely populated housing estate. She needs her men.
She summons Gary Stretch and Leslie Layton to the house and orders them to help get rid of the bodies. They simply comply.
As Stretch cleans up the blood, Denahi did as she had promised with Kevin Lee. Dressed him up in her clothes, committed further acts to his body.
Even in death, she wanted to humiliate him as well.
Leslie Layton, meanwhile, was getting rid of Kevin Lee's car, just as instructed, before all 3 drive deep into the countryside and dump Kevin Lee's body in a ditch, deliberately positioning it so his rear was exposed.
The contempt that she has for her victims is evidenced by the way that she disposes of them. In this one case, she puts this guy in a ditch and goes out of her way to expose him. She exposes his backside, leaves him there. It's a bit of a joke for her. It's just something that she does. This person is not really a person. It's a means to an end.
Denahi needs a place to hide out. She is certain, and she is right, that someone will stumble across the bodies. It was time to enlist yet another man to her cause. Robert Moore had earlier allowed a tarpaulin from his home to be used to wrap around the body of John Chapman. Now he will provide a safe house.
Robert Moore is another man in her life that she's able to control. She needs help. She just puts out a phone call to him. He comes. He helps. No questions asked.
Moore provides Denahi and Stretch's home to hide out for 2 more days. After laying low for 48 hours, moving to another hideout, Denahi and Stretch set off for Hereford, a border town between Wales and England. Stretch knew the place. The couple burgle a house in a remote area nearby and hook up with local criminals to offload their stolen goods. They then pick up a minor local criminal, Mark Lloyd, who knew nothing of the murders, and asked him to help them navigate their way around Herefordshire. At first, he allows himself to be swept up in the mania of the day, posing for photographs. He goes shopping with Denahi. The couple captured on security cameras entering a store, acting perfectly naturally. Positively jovial, almost intimate. They both flirt with the assistant. Denahi compliments her on her figure, asks her to spin around so she can admire it. Then they leave.
There's some CCTV footage of her going into a shop and just talking with a girl behind the counter and saying, you look pretty, turn around, and the girl's turning around. It just seems like this really normal interaction. And it's testament to how cool she was about this. For her, killing wasn't something to be concerned with or worried about. This was something that's going to give her a high. This was a bit of fun. This was, for her, nothing more than enjoying a day out. This wasn't about the victim. This was about her enjoying the pain that she was going to inflict. And she could do that and at the same time speak to people and giggle and just have a good time.
The latest man that she has enrolled into her cause is to be dumbfounded at what happens next. Denahi has not killed for days. She wants to rectify that. As they cruise around an area of this quiet market town, she issues Stretch with an instruction. 3 murders are not enough. She wants to kill again and again, to have some fun. She has a hero to emulate.
Quite clearly, she was focused on killing these men in a very short time period, and there is a suggestion that she was keen on the notoriety that would bring her, and there was some suggestion that she was focused on the 9 murders committed by Bonnie and Clyde.
She told Stretch it was time she had some fun. He was to stop the next time that he saw a man walking a dog.
That's it. I want to kill somebody with a dog. That's what I'm going to do. And so she gets in a car and she's literally looking around for a person with a dog to kill.
Robin Bereza is a retired fireman. He likes to keep fit. That day, he decided at the last moment not to go on his usual jogging route, but instead to walk the dog.
The first person she spots with a dog, she jumps out of the car and she starts stabbing him. Now this man survives, but while she's stabbing him, he stops and he says, "Why? Why are you doing this to me?" Her response is very simple. "Because I can. I want you to die."
Stretch provides her getaway car. Robin Bereza survived, but was badly hurt, physically and emotionally scarred for life. He had been the victim of a random attack. Denahi was not finished, her target not dead. Only killing satisfies her now.
So she goes on the hunt again.
Another man walking his dog, John Rogers, comes into view of Denahi and her sidekick Stretch. Again, he cruises up behind her target, and again she attacks. She stabs him repeatedly in the back. He falls and she stabs him in the chest, again, over and over, 30 times in all. Denahi grabs his dog, runs back to the car.
She was convinced this poor man was dead, and that is the only reason she ran away.
John Rogers survived, but was never the same man again and died from an unconnected illness later that year. Within an hour, Denahi and Stretch were captured.
Clearly, if she'd not been arrested when she was, there would have been other people attacked on that day in the same way.
It was time for Denahi to seize the centre stage. In front of officers, she gloated, flirted with the desk sergeant.
Not very distinct to my ride, is it? It's all right.
Yeah, I'll pluck them.
Go right up.
It's all
It's a real strip drive.
It is all routine to a woman who has killed 3 times and tried to kill another 2 times. She is vain, does not want to be placed in a police suicide suit.
Suicide suit. Shorts and massive. Yeah. Paper suits.
They are big shorts.
Wrap them around the time.
For most people, her actions are incomprehensible, but these scenes when she's arrested take our understanding of Joanna Denahi to a new level. She has absolutely no sense of remorse.
In police interviews, Denahi at first has nothing to say about the murders.
Did you murder Lushkash Slavojeski?
No comment.
Did you murder Kevin Lee?
No comment.
Did you murder John Chapman?
No comment.
But at her trial, surrounded in court, she seizes her moment, pleads guilty.
It's like she's proud of what she's done. She's taking her metaphorical bow. She's enjoying what she sees as her applause.
Joanne Denahi admitted to finding killing Moorish.
It's rare to come across female serial killers, but I think with Joanna Denahi, just the level of contempt that she had for human life, the level of just joy that she took out of inflicting pain and harm, I think arguably make her one of the worst female serial killers that we know of.
As for the men in her life who survived, the judge said that he accepted that Gary Stretch was under the thrall of Denahi, but still gave a sentence of life with a minimum 19 years to be served before parole is considered. Leslie Layton was given 14 years for his offence. Robert Moore was also described by the judge as being under a spell cast by Denahi. He was given 3 years in prison. As for Denahi herself, the judge was scathing in his observations of her conduct, sentencing her to a full life tariff. She will never be released from prison.
I think there's a danger in overthinking the way in which Joanne Denahi selected her victims. I think that she wasn't that particularly focused on who they were. They were just men in the wrong place at the wrong time.